Hello from main dining room at Miss Porter's School. I'm Christine Pina, Chief Advancement Officer, and I'm delighted to welcome you here today to a wonderful discussion between Chef Kamal Rose from Thompson Hospitality and Miss Porter's own Zoe Brown, Senior, Nova 9 member, and Head of Diversity. Zoe is a 4-year student from Manhattan, New York, and she is here to have a wonderful conversation today with Chef Rose about the wonderful meal that he's going to prepare for our Black History Month celebration.
Hi everyone, my name is Zoe Brown and I'm the student head of diversity at Miss Porter's School. I'm super excited to be interviewing Chef Kamal Rose as a part of our programming for Black History Month at Porter's. Chef Kamal is the executive chef at Thompson Hospitality, which is the largest minority-owned food service company in the country. Chef Kamal has over 18 years of experience in the culinary industry. Chef Kamal, thank you so much for coming over to speak today.
My pleasure, happy to be here.
So the first question is, tell me more about your background as a chef.
So pretty much my background, I would say my love for food began cooking with my grandmother in her kitchen at the time. And pretty much I could remember like Saturday morning she would be like making breads, making soups, and pretty much after she cooked, everyone came over and we had like this like giant like family meal, and just like the smile on her face, her feeding someone and the reaction to someone eating her food made me fall in love with cooking essentially.
It's nice to have that like family perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, because sometimes like it sounds like a cliche. It's just like, oh, like I cooked with my grandmother. Like I really cooked with my grandmother. You know, it's just like I became like the man of the house at a very young age because I grew up with my grandmother. She was my grandmother and my mother, and then my grandfather passed away. So it was just me and her essentially. You know, so when he passed away, she was like, well, now you're the man of the house. And I was kind of like, 10, 11 years old. I was like, all right, let's do this. This sounds good, So we'd go to plays, we'd go to fish market every day, meat market, whatever I ate, we cooked. It's not like here, it was just like, oh, let's go out to eat or let's stop at this restaurant. It was lunch. She cooked dinner, breakfast, everything we ate, You needed some eggs, you went to the back and you got some eggs. Sometimes you have to like chase the chicken to get the eggs from under the chicken. But just to see where your food came from in full 360 essentially, when the whole like farm to table came around, and just like, oh, like I grew up doing this. This is nothing new to me essentially.
That's great. Well, speaking of family, how has your identity as a Black person influenced your career as a chef?
At a very young age, I told myself whatever I fell in love with, I'm gonna stick to. I had a dad that pretty much didn't know what he wanted to do with his life, so he was a journalist, he was, a photographer, he was, entrepreneur essentially, and he couldn't find his path in life. And I was just like, at a very young age, whatever it is, I'm gonna stick to it, and pretty much that was cooking. So started now into like my professional career where I'm just like pretty much going into kitchens. At the senior year of high school, I was offered an externship position at Tribeca Grill in the city, and I remember going and pretty much staging. So staging is where you go and try out, pretty much to see if this is the environment that you could work in. I remember going to the chef and saying, hey, I'm here, do you remember interviewing me? And he tried to brush me off. He's like, no, like I don't remember you, so that was on the phone. So then he showed up the next day. I was just like, I'm here, do you remember me now? That's pretty much how that started. And then pretty much in a professional world, essentially, as a Black chef, I didn't have much chefs to look up to as far as like, I want to be this person, pretty much growing up, like pretty much the favorite chefs like weren't really cooking African American food essentially. Like pretty much like Marcus Samuelson was still like cooking at Aquavit, etc. You didn't meet like the JJs of the world, the Kwames of the world that pretty much said at a young age, I don't need to work for anyone but myself. My culture would speak for me, and I'm confident enough to push this forward. So props to these chefs.
How has your cultural heritage influenced the food that you enjoy cooking?
So I grew up in the Caribbean, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and pretty much me as a chef and like celebrating different diversity months from Black History to Asian Pacific to Hispanic heritage. I just want to show how food is just intertwined as far as like, you know, we just pretty much use the ingredients accessible to us. You know, for example, like tonight, if you guys are here for dinner, I'm making like a jollof rice, and a jollof is pretty much like a paella essentially, you know, but it has African influence based on the ingredients, the way it's cooked, etc. So just me being grounded, knowing, you know, where I came from, the accessibility I had to food, you know, it just, you could branch out and like relate to any cuisine essentially.
Yeah, the diaspora is so big that
Absolutely.
it can go like any direction.
Yeah, and it for us, you know, it's just a matter of, you know, you don't want to take it back to slavery essentially, but then it comes down to what boat you were on, essentially.
What role do you think food plays in Black History Month and at other times of the year?
It plays a huge role because it's food is now connected to traditions, and if you forget the food traditions, then you just forget yourself along the way essentially, because you're connected through food, through family, and your family is connected to previous generations.
Right.
So if you don't carry on these, I would say, like genetic genes of food, you pretty much lose yourself and you don't know where to start, you know. So it's about each generation carrying on these traditions, passing it on, so that we could continue celebrating ourselves, and it shouldn't be a question of it. This is who we are.
And finally, how can we or do we celebrate Black History Month with food?
We celebrate Black History with food, or through food, by one, understanding that it's just not one food or one cuisine.
Right.
Essentially, we're considered Black, but these foods came from many different origins. You know, for example, I'm an island boy, so I relate to island food. You know, you go down south and it's a little different. An example of that is like our Philadelphia pepper pot. So Philadelphia pepper pot, pretty much you take all the innards, etc. You take your greens, your root vegetables, you cook it down. In the Caribbean, where I'm from, we call that callaloo, and we would have callaloo pretty much every Saturday. You know, in Guyana, it's considered pepper pot. So it's just like, be as authentic as possible, celebrate the cuisine, embrace the culture, and it's all about educating the uneducated so that we can move forward.
Wow, Chef Kamal, thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
coming.
I'm
we
happy
hope
to
you
be
learned
here.
about the intersections of food and culture, and happy Black History Month.
And see you tonight for dinner.
What's for dinner tonight?
Oh, tonight we're doing some jerk chicken, jollof rice. I have a Creole barbecue shrimp with some aged cheddar grits, Cajun Caesar salad with some cornbread croutons. So pretty much we have a little bit of Valentine's there. So you have like the white grits, you have like the red sauce with the shrimp, the jollof, which is like a red accented rice. Just deliciousness here waiting for you. See you soon.